6 game developers, 3 game engines, 1 art pack. It's time for another Cinti art pack jam. This time we're using the Cinti Street Racer asset pack in Unity, Godot and Unreal Engine 5 to make 6 games in no more than 48 hours. Cinti were kind enough to provide us with this pack to celebrate the Cinti 10th birthday sale, which is happening right now until Friday, August the 2nd. There's a link to the store in the description where you can grab 50% off almost everything store-wide, as well as 10 days of epic deals. You can see the 10 epic deals on screen now. For now, let's just get straight into it with the first developer.
Hello everybody, I'm Johnny from the TurboMakesGames YouTube channel, and on my channel I specialize in topics related to Unity's data-oriented technology stack and their entity component system. Now, if you've never heard of dots and ECS, they're basically just a whole bunch of optimizations part of the Unity game engine that allow you to do a lot of really cool and high-performance things, especially with a large number of dynamic entities. Now, because of this, I'm always thinking of cool and interesting game ideas of things that I could make with higher entity counts. And one of the ideas that I've had in my head for a very long time is to do a racing battle royale. You know, basically taking like an arcade style racer game like Need for Speed and then putting 100 people in a map together and having them battle it out, eliminating players all throughout the match until one person becomes victorious and wins the battle royale. So anyways, I thought this Cinti Racer Challenge would be the perfect opportunity to prototype out this idea that I have and see if it's actually as interesting as I think it's going to be. So first things first, I'm gonna start with a vehicle controller. I'm gonna do a very simple and arcadey feeling vehicle controller. I don't wanna spend too much time on the vehicle controller, so I ended up doing the giant rolling sphere technique where basically the character controller is literally just a giant rolling sphere, and then we have a separate visual representation of a car. I still would like to do a little bit of fine tuning on the vehicle controller to tune down the drift a little bit, but unfortunately it was proving to be a little bit of a challenge to fine tune things appropriately. So I went ahead and just moved on to the AI portion of this. Now I could do something really crazy and complicated where each vehicle is doing their own pathfinding and determining, you know, what it should do to navigate around the track and avoid other players and everything like that. But frankly, that's way more complicated than necessary for this fun little prototype of game. So actually what I ended up doing is implemented a flow field to do my pathfinding and AI navigation. Now normally a flow field is typically used in like a real-time strategy game where if you have a bunch of units all over a big map and you want to have them all attack one single location, well, a flow field can get generated to basically determine the direction of travel at any given point on the map to take all those units that were selected to that one single point. Now, instead of going to a single point, I'm gonna make a modification of the flow field to basically make all the vehicle controllers do laps around the lap that I've created. So the way that I did this is I basically used Unity's spline tool to author a spline that goes around the test track that I've created. And this spline is not necessarily representative of the center line of the track, but it's more representative of the most optimal path that the AI characters should be following along. Now, what I did after that is I broke up the entire environment into a grid of cells. And then during a baking process, which is a Unity ECS concept, I basically go through every single cell on the grid and then locate the closest position on that spline. And then I store that direction in the cell. So now if an AI vehicle was sitting above a given cell, it could sample that cell and figure out the direction that it needs to travel to get to that main spline. However, we don't just want these characters to travel to the spline, we want them to kind of follow along the spline. So what I also did during that process where I'm visiting every single cell, I'm also determining the direction of the spline at that point. Now with this information on the cells, I can kind of do an interpolation based off of distance so that cells closer to the spline are going to more closely follow the direction of the spline, whereas cells further away from the spline are going to point towards the spline. So that way, if a character or a vehicle kind of gets off track, it's going to first kind of navigate its way back towards that spline. And as it gets closer and closer to that spline, it's going to start in its direction of travel following along with that spline. So now basically all the AI characters are going to be following along the spline. And even if they get bumped off, they're going to be able to navigate their way back to that main path. Now, another interesting thing that I did with this flow field is we could actually bake more data than just the kind of directional data into these cells. So I also use this to store a value from 0 to 1 to determine how far along the lap a given given player is. Now with this value, I can basically sort them all from largest to smallest and use that to determine the position that a given racer is. So once I had that, now I could start adding in the battle royale style elements. So basically I just kind of have some like timers running in the background, and after a certain period of time, a little timer is going to appear on the top of the screen saying it's going to be eliminating some certain number of positions. And then I added in a couple fun extra things like this vehicle customizer where you can choose your vehicle and your design. And then I also created a big final track for you to race 100 other players on. So it was kind of interesting designing around all these other players. And I do think that this was overall a really fun challenge. And thank you very much to Dan for allowing me to participate in this. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what all the other people created for this challenge.
All right, Racing Royale. Just don't get eliminated. Nice. I like that I can pick what my car looks like. Oh yeah, go on then, go on. Oh, the performance is not fantastic. Oh. Okay, there we go. I think we're in. Oh, I need to try and force my way in. Oh, I'm getting pummeled. Oh, and it eliminates positions after some time. Okay, I really need to catch up. It's quite cool that there's so many people that you can race against as well. Like, the volume is sheer. It's awesome. I don't know how I feel about the camera controller. It feels a bit too responsive. Almost like when I turn, the camera's anticipating my view way too much. Nice. That's cool, that's cool.
Ooh, nice. I want to rate. Whoa. Those are... I guess we are going this way. Hi, everybody. Why is that one floating over there? This is... okay. Hey! They kicked me. They totally kicked me. Can I get back on track? Yes, I can. No. Come on, no. I'm 60. I am 60. I saw that. This was mean. I'm on 18. 18 is nice. I can work with 18. Hey guy, you're cheating. This is basically a fixed speed race, which feels very strange, but kinda hypnotic.
Okay, right from the start I can say I like the vehicle customization. Oh, it's eliminating the lowest positions. That's so cool, but it's pretty tough. Do the laps change? I think this changes. I do not like one thing, which is the lack of audio. But other than that, everything seems pretty nice. This overall could be a really cool concept for a multiplayer racing game even. Though I feel like there could be a little more difficulty.
Hi, I'm Christina from Christina Creates Games. Ever since I was a child, I loved loopings in racing games, and I completely blame stunts for this fascination with physically questionable road obstacles. Welcome to Track Sanity, my attempt to capture the excitement of one of my childhood's favorite games. You can play it over on itch right now, give it a try. But let's focus on loopings and a bit of level building here. I'll have the complete devlog posted to my channel the day after this one goes up. Hope to see you there. Stunts had a bunch of obstacles the player had to avoid or use. Angled curves, sudden ramps and blockades, corkscrews and, most importantly, loopings. So once again, my development did not begin with Unity Open, but with Blender instead. Cindy's pack did come with quite a few obstacles I was able to use right out of the box luckily, but some centerpieces needed to be created to expand on them. Loopings felt like I was tackling some end boss right out of the gate. I had expected to just drive towards them and through them, quite naively so. But of course it couldn't have been that simple, could it? For a very long while, the car always got stuck at odd angles. It got so bad that I even experimented with splines. I had enter and exit zones that the player would trigger when driving through, which would lead to the computer taking over and moving the car along a spline with a set velocity only to give control back to the player at the end. And I told myself this was fine. Really, nobody would notice, right? The car was acting just as expected, and hey, it made loopings drivable, and it felt just so incredibly wrong. Not just the taking away control from the player part, but the whole experience itself. There was no slowing down, no speeding up, no moment where the car is on the brink of falling out of the loop. I kept the system for a couple of hours trying to convince myself it was, in fact, all right, until I finally caved and started experimenting heavily with speed, gravity, collider sizes and such, until I managed to make the loopings drivable. Which I subsequently broke half a dozen times more over the course of this project. I learned a thing or two about saving presets. And very late I realized one mistake I had done when I went crazy with cluttering the scene. Turns had to become incredibly precise. Otherwise the car would get stuck on elements too close to the roads. If you fell off a ramp or a loop, there was a high chance you'd not be able to get back on the track at all, requiring a restart. Here, my lack of experience with the genre really shone through. It felt like stunts had been an action racer, while my game was aiming to be a precision racer instead. So, tidying up the levels was taking almost as much time as cluttering them in the first place. Guess with racing games, less can really be more. In the last couple of hours of the project, I managed to add ghosts to drive against, and a track cam which would follow the car once a third lap has been completed. I had worried this would take a huge amount of time out of the project's time budget, but I found a tutorial for a ghost mode that barely took 20 minutes to work through and get working in my own project. And for the track cam, I used a bunch of Cinemachine virtual cameras. I guess using FreeLook would have made a whole lot more sense, but I was close to the deadline and these ones I knew how to work with. The result, while still wonky, still made this whole project feel so much more complete. But I was also able to implement these things in the first place because I was able to reuse huge amounts of scripts and assets from prior projects, saving a ton of time that way. And I got myself a car controller because I simply have zero clue how to create one, and the focus of my project was to have a playable game, not to figure out how to control a car. I'm much more of a bicycle person anyway. Well, I hope you'll enjoy giving Tracksanity a try. And a big thank you to Dan and Cindy for this amazing project. It has been so much fun.
I really like the feedback on these buttons. I don't like the fact that these differ from these though. Oh, the audio settings work here though. But yeah, the car controller feels really nice. Christina, do you pull like Trackmania or something? This feels good. Okay, the timer doesn't work. Oh my god, does this speedometer actually react to the speed? Overall, I really like the map design, it's really well made. I really love the lighting on this game. That's some talented game dev right here. Good game.
Okay, so Tracksanity. I thought this game had fantastic track design. I think it's immediately obvious that a lot of time went into building out all these different tracks. There's just a lot of good details and the assets were used very well, and it makes an overall really nice track that's fun to play. I think it plays nicely in both first person as well as third person modes. I thought this game had a great soundtrack, and I thought it was really cool that there were people just kind of cheering all throughout the map, which was pretty cool. I do wish there was a little bit of an easier way to reset back to the previous checkpoint. I know there is kind of a way you can do it through the pause menu, but it wasn't necessarily the most intuitive to me, and I think I might have gotten a couple little bugs from doing that, but overall, really solid, fun racing game. Nicely done.
Tracksanity. Oh, first person perspective, okay. Ooh, look at that sky. Speed up! I hit a tree. Man, it looks really good. Oh! Barrel roll! Yo! Oh, I think I just skipped a part of the track. Speedrun strategies.
I'm Outer and I made Vapor Racers in Godot. Vapor Racers is an arcade vaporwave inspired game where you try to cause as much chaos as possible. Let's talk about how I made it. Opening the project, I imported the assets to see what I had to work with. All the models were white. They didn't have any textures on them, which was an issue because some of the models were made of lots of pieces and it'd be too much work to assign them all by hand. So I wrote a script to do it for me, and it used this one weird file that Cinti for some reason included in their pack, which is super useful, and it tells you what textures go on which model. This script uses it to, with a hit of a button, automatically apply the textures, which was super useful. With the model situation sorted out, it was time to figure out how the character controller was going to work. Car controllers are pretty difficult to do, and we don't have much time, only 48 hours. So I came up with this system. You have a static rigid body and a dynamic car rigid body, and they're linked with a spring. The player controls the static one, and it goes left and right and turns, and the car is able to physically react to the objects around it while still being attracted to where the player wants him to be. So with the car controller figured out, it was time to move on to more gameplay stuff. I created this system to infinitely place road tiles as the car would drive on it, but I needed obstacles to put on it. By looking at the Cinti examples, I got this idea of the player causing as much mayhem as possible, and I wanted the player to be able to run into barrels, knock them over, hit cars causing the crash, and so I made some tiles with ramps and stacks of barrels that you could ram into. The issue is we're still missing the cars that you could run into. The NPCs took some time, but with a little bit of work, using the same sort of system as the player controller with the spring and the dynamic car and static rigid body, I got NPCs to work. During this time, I started working out visuals for the game. I lowered the resolution and started working on a sunset, and it honestly started looking pretty nice, and that's where I got inspired to do the Vaporwave retro theme. The issue was the game was still lacking some amount of depth. You could run into and cause mayhem, but there was no real incentive to do it. That's when I added the point system and the boost meter. Basically, when you run into objects and just cause general mayhem, your boost meter will fill up and you'll gain points. Once your boost meter fills up, you'll go into this frenzy where you go super fast and the screen flashes colors and the music speeds up, and most importantly, you get double points. That way the game becomes about gaining as much points as you can by causing as much mayhem as you can. And honestly, this feels really fun. While designing the system, I wanted to go by this constraint of having no on-screen user interface. So, I put user interface just on the car. This is called diegetic UI, and it's where you put the user interface in the world, and it makes it feel a little bit more immersive. There's still some missing elements to the game though. There was no sound effects, music, or high score. I found some free music and sound effects online and implemented them, and it makes such a difference. Having the music actually play and fit with the theme, and then having audio reactions when you hit objects feels great. We're still missing the high score though, and I ran into some trouble figuring out how is it going to actually show that to the player with no UI on screen. So I came up with this idea. I've seen like speed limit signs where they draw it onto the road in white paint, so before you start a run, you'll be able to see your high score going under your car as a part of the road. Honestly, the game turned out really great. I think it's one of my favorite games I've ever made. Thank you for DanPos for hosting this collaboration. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, okay, right out of the gate, this is amazing music. Yes, ramps, I love ramps. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. Absolutely, I love ramps. Put them into everything. Ooh! Other car. Hi. Ha. This is fun. Whoop. Okay. What? Is this stuff I have destroyed? What's happening? The pixelation makes it a little bit hard to read at times. But hey, ramps, that's all I need to know, really. Very nice.
I really like this style, it's like, oh, that was fun. I love these physics, they're just absolutely messed up. I really like the post-processing here. This feels like drugs. I don't exactly know what I'm doing though, which I'd say is my only issue here. Ooh, I like the music, and it speeds up if I could like, yeah, that's really cool. I also like how you cannot see the full map. I think it's just generating along as I go. Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same as the first time, so I really like that.
Okay, Vapor Racer. This, of course, is a very stylized version of this game. I think it uses the assets in a really interesting way to make something that's, visually separate from pretty much all the other games that were submitted to this jam. I also really appreciate the in-world UI, how it has like the high score written on the actual track, and then your current score is kind of like the back window, and it has like this nice cool little effect as you start hitting more obstacles. Now that is another thing that I wanted to mention. At first I thought it was, kind of like a typical dodge the obstacle type game, you don't want to hit things. But then the second time I played through, I'm like, all right, what just happens if I, hit everything and max out this meter? And then it turns out I started getting like all kinds of speed boosts, and I'm hitting high scores and everything. So I thought that was like a pretty cool way to kind of play with my expectations a little bit. So overall, fun game, would recommend.
Okay, Vapor Racer. It's gone the infinite runner route like I did in my game, but this immediately feels a lot better to play. I like these physics. Okay, so we have to damage stuff. We're getting a score, right? How could we lose? There doesn't seem to be anything that could stop us so far. Oh, I guess actually, can we go into these crates? Oh no, we just push the crates. Oh, here we go. Is there a timer? Or do we just keep going? I thought there would be an end state. I guess you could go off the track. Do we just keep going forever and ever? It's good fun though, and the music's really good. I can't show you guys the music. Monetization and all that. Oh, this is really good. I like the kind of like the physics basically. It's kind of movement back and forth, and riding on top of all the other characters. I'm really interested to see how they did it. Physics based, because in my infinite runner type thing, I just moved the character back and forth, like left and right. Not really any physics involved. But no, this is, good fun. Is this a tunnel coming up? Oh, right, okay. Okay, I like that. So it's a run, and it's just how high of a score can you get before the end of the run. Okay, yeah, that's good. Good job.
Well, howdy. I've always found cars kind of difficult, and I've also always found jams kind of difficult. I have a terrible habit of overscoping everything I build. So, for this jam, my goal is to create something small, polished, and fun. First things first, I popped open the pack to have a look around and get some inspiration. I'm thinking a lot about my go-to style, which is kind of a flat-shaded isometric vibe, and the style of the pack really fits well with this. There's a lot of excellent quality low-poly assets in here to make use of, and I think this is probably what I'm going to settle for. After cycling through a lot of ideas in my head, between competitive racer game, Overcooked but with mechanics, car building simulator, and many others, I decided to settle on the rather unoriginal idea of a Vampire Survivors style dodge 'em up with a similar nature to the classic mobile game Go Planes, except it's with cars instead of planes. The car feels like a good place to start, so let's get into it. I took out the exotic car prefab, very fancy, and plunked it into the scene as a child of an empty game object with a box collider on it. I then built out a super simple rigid body based controller for the car, which literally just lets the car accelerate forwards and will clamp the velocity if it gets above a certain amount. It will then rotate the car if you're pressing the turning buttons, pretty standard. I wanted to get straight in and add some juice / polish to make this feel really good, so I added some trail renderers underneath each of the tires for drift trails, and then I added some dynamic tilt onto the body of the car so that as the velocity changes, it will actually rotate to make it feel like there's some suspension, and this really helped make the car controller feel a lot more heavy and impactful. Now, the joy of the way I built this is that I could reuse the exact same car controller component that I made for all of my enemies. All I needed to do was create some separate input. So I built out a small class which simply looks for the position of the player and then steers towards that. This is about it, nice and simple. To make them a little bit smarter, I did add a little check for other cars near them, which if there is another car in radius, it will adjust the turning input ever so slightly in the opposite direction based on how far away that enemy car is. So they were now kind of avoiding each other and still trying to hit the player directly. Next up, I created an event on the car controller for when it gets hit. It simply gets invoked when a collision occurs on the car layer, and you may have guessed that all of the cars are on the car layer. Off the back of this, I've got a health system that can tap into this event and decrease its health once impacted. At this point, I decided to do a full rejig of the camera layout to have a static scene focused on the whole map rather than just following the car. I also added a little fog effect to the platform to make it appear as if it's floating, and then stuck some of the other assets from the pack for the environment to make it look almost like a limbo-ish wasteland. So at this point I'm about 6 hours deep and I still have no game loop for the game, and my time on actually developing this project is running out, so I really need to get cracking. I made a game manager which tracks how long the player has been alive for, hooked up the player to die after it's been hit 3 times, and then created a spawning system for the enemies so that I could spawn them with set configurations that I designed as scriptable objects. With all of that in place, I basically had a full game loop now, so it was time to add in some UI and some extra polish so that I could get this thing finished up. I added in an additional enemy which would come in after about a minute and a half, and the idea of this was just to have something bigger that moves a little bit faster, so it's more of a challenge. And then I added in some power-ups using the bomb and repair VFX from in the pack as well. Final thing to polish things up was adding in some sound effects and music, did some animations for the UI in the menus, and boom, that was it. I actually ended up only using about 15 of the total 48 hours that we were allowed to use for this project due to life just lifing, but I really enjoyed taking part, and I'm very much so looking forward to seeing what other people have made as well.
Limbo Drifter. Whoa! Ooh! Ooh! I like the effects. Oh yikes! Get dodged. This is fun. This is really fun. There's a lot of really good polish, and I think that really makes it come together with all the effects, and like, it's just really well done. 1 minute.
Whee! Whoop! That was a very fast turn. Seriously, this car controller feels very nice and very responsive. Come on. Come on. The indicators are great. They help a lot and they have just the right length. And seriously, the UI is simple but very readable. Whee! Well, speed up is maybe not the thing I need right now. Really appreciate that. Come on, I need you. Okay, this one's solid fun, really.
So I really loved Limbo Drift. I thought this was a totally fun game where you could just easily pick up and play. The gameplay mechanics are quite obvious, and it has a very addicting game loop too. It just feels really good to play. It's a nice polished game. I think the developer did a very good job of creating a fun game with this. And you kind of have that like nice high score chasing aspect of it. I got in a good flow on one round and it made it 2 minutes and 27 seconds, which I feel pretty good about. And overall, just really dug this game. Well done.
Okay, let's have a look at Limbo Drift by Cuba. Press W to begin. What does this button do? Oh. I mean, okay, that makes sense. Okay, right, this time we will press W to begin. Oh, I thought I was about to go straight off. Oh, I like these controls, that feels really good. And I've already lost a life. And another one. Oh no! 13 seconds. That controller feels really good, nice and fun. This already feels almost like a game that you'd just get and play. Like if this was on mobile or even Steam with obviously a bit more fleshed out. If there was like a track, that'd be cool. Oh, hello. Hello. Got my health back. I am terrible at this.
Hey there, my name's Cherry and I'm one of the Unity developers. I'm working on an indie game called On the Wind's Breath, which is available for wishlists right now on Steam, so go ahead and check it out. Either way, let's get into it. So, I have never worked in 3D before. This will be fun. First thing I did was download my asset pack and check it out. I wanted to make a normal game, I really did, but I'm bad at programming. So I decided to make an awful rage game. I started by getting the Prometeo car controller as a way to implement the controls. The next obvious step was to actually make a little level part to test it out, so that's exactly what I've done. And as you can see, it's actually just barely working, so it's perfect. So now the next problem, which is the map looks awful. I added fog. It fixed it. It works. Perfect. Do not fight me on this one. Finally, after creating a lot more levels, revamping the car colliders, I had the base done. Next step, main menu. It truly took me a while to get it work, and it does, at least on my machine. I then added some extra effects to the camera and added 2 different perspectives for the player, and I thought I'd call it a day. But what's a good rage game without passive-aggressive voice lines?
There really have been hamsters climbing Mount Everest faster than you reaching this checkpoint.
Isn't it amazing? Now add music, call it done, send it over, and it's perfect. Almost.
Oh, no. I'm so bad at rage games. Ooh. Oh my god. No. Yes. What?
Okay, so this was created as an experiment as a rage game, as far as I know, and I think it really does that quite well. Come on, no. Come on, I just want to get this one jump done, just once, please. It would be very nice if this circle would at least reset in the correct direction. But I guess that's part of the rage game thing? I really can't tell because I typically don't play those games. For a reason? Oh, come on. Why is there a step? I'm a car. A car is not meant to scale unseen horrors of nightmare fuel level design. No.
So I thought the concept of driving over it was a super great idea because it takes the ideas of those super viral climbing type games that you see a lot of streamers playing these days, and it turns it into a driving game, which I think is a fantastic idea. Unfortunately, I found the vehicle controller to be quite unforgiving. A bunch of times I was just getting stuck on small little things and found it very difficult to actually make any meaningful progress in the game, which is quite unfortunate because the beginning of the game has this awesome fly through of the map where you see all these super cool obstacles that you could be basically driving over, I guess. Played the game for about 30 minutes and unfortunately didn't even make it to the second checkpoint. It was quite challenging, but unfortunately it was me just mostly fighting with the vehicle controller for the most part. So I think this game could be a complete hit if the vehicle controller fit the gameplay mechanics a little bit better.
Okay, so I think that's a checkpoint. I saw there's different camera controls. Okay, so we've got a first person camera as well. I always prefer third person cameras for this stuff. Oh. Immediately I'm stuck. Oh no. Alright, press R to reset. Hold R. Alright, let's try that again. Probably need a bit more of a speed bump. Yep, there we go. Oh. Oh no. I don't know what's... I started pressing space. I thought it'd be like a jump for some reason. Alright, let's reset. So is space a little speed boost? Okay. No! Alright, let's try that again. So, a bit of a boost and then stop and then... Yeah. Come on, I want to at least get over this first bit. stuck again. Okay, so there's obviously a little bug here with some sort of collision. But it's fine, that's what the reset button's for. Alright, let's get over this first bump. Alright, and then a bit of a boost, and then a stop, 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 stop! Ooh. Another boost, right. Alright, boost, and then stop. No keys, no keys, no keys, ah! I feel like there's a trick to this first, I just want to get over this first bit. Come on. Alright, quick boost, and then let go of the keys. Why? Right, boost, and then let go. Right, there we go, there we go. No, for God damn it. Oh, 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 I did it. I did it. Right, let's do a bajillion point turn and get facing the correct way now. Oh, 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 slalom, slalom it. Going too fast, going too fast. No! Very close that first checkpoint. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a good rage game. And obviously I guess driving over it is a play like getting over it by Ben something or other that I always forget the surname of. Oh, hello. That was interesting. Alright. Yeah, I was thinking I was about to stop playing, but I carried right, I need to stop. But yeah, great work. I've always sucked at these kind of games, and it seems I continue to suck at these types of games. Okay, so it's my turn. The name for this very much preceded any actual gameplay ideas I had. Road Mage instead of Road Rage, you get it? This would be about a car with magical powers. I decided to use Unreal Engine 5 for this jam. I have used it previously, going through tutorials and stuff, but I haven't used it for a long time, as I'm very much a Unity developer through and through. I thought it would be cool for this video to have the pack shown in 3 different game engines, and I knew that Unreal had a cool built-in car controller from the get-go, and I thought this would actually give me a bit of a head start, but spoiler alert, if anything, this doomed the entire project before it even begun. I tried for a while to figure out how exactly the Cinti cars could be visually hooked up to the Unreal Racing car controller, but I just could not get it to work. I had engine crashing, glitching, lots of it just not working and no idea why or how to debug it. After wasting something around 4 or 5 hours bashing my head against the wall, I finally admitted defeat and decided to change course. Ages ago, I made an infinite runner style project in Unity, and coding wise, it's relatively simple, so I thought I could do something similar here. The idea would be to dodge oncoming vehicles and you could destroy them with your magic fireball spell. For the world generation, the logic of this was very easy to set up, and at first it was actually working fine. But after a while and some changes that I did to the code, I started encountering a bug where there were slight gaps between the spawned tiles. These weren't there at first, and I went over the blueprints so many times, and as far as I could tell, like then when working on it, it should be working perfectly. As I say, this is something I've done in Unity a few times, so I know the logic should be sound. However, after having a break from the project, I have a few thoughts as to how to solve the issue, but in that moment I was just going insane trying to fix it. Again, a good few hours were wasted trying to solve this stupid bug, but in the end, time was running out and I knew I had to just get something done. The longer the player survives, the faster the world and the cars should approach the player, meaning it becomes harder to dodge. But due to lack of time at this point, there's this weird issue now where eventually the cars look as if they're going backwards. I think the bug here is that the cars don't actually speed up as they should. Overall, this was a bit of a failed experiment, and I genuinely felt embarrassed sharing the so-called game, in air quotes, with the rest of the team. But this is what jam-style things are always about. They give you scope to just try something new and weird without ruining your current project. Speaking of which, my current project Revelocity is a 2D physics-based roguelite, and it's progressing nicely and it's available to wishlist right now on Steam. With that said, let's just jump to the reactions and see what the others thought about Road Mage.
Okay, so Road Mage. Let me just say, first of all, that is a fantastic game that I think fits the game very well. Now, I believe this game is actually the first game that Dan developed with the Unreal Engine, so super cool that he kind of, built something with the Unreal Engine for the first time for this jam, and it ended up being a fun little game, but just due to the way that the speed of the vehicles of, your vehicle, as well as oncoming vehicles, as well as the camera angle, you really have to kind of have like a pretty quick reaction, so I found it best to just kind of like stay in the center, and then when a car came, then I, kind of have to swerve in front of it and hit the space bar to fire a fireball. And I just think the comically oversized wizard hat is just a hilarious little touch for the game too. So yeah, well done with Road Mage.
Fireball! Fireball! It's getting fast. Or maybe, am I just hallucinating? I feel like it's getting faster. 100 seconds. Ooh, beat that.
Whoop. I have to say, the lighting looks really nice. Whoop. And the movement is quite snappy. I have one. I guess I need to collect the blue ones to recharge. Okay. So that happens if somebody crashes into you. Yeah, and at this speed it looks like the other racing, well, not racing per se, the other people on the road are driving backwards. Yep, backwards. I can feel my eyes being kind of stuck at the upper end of my monitor. Like, I am constantly hoping to be able to see just a meter or two ahead. And at this speed I'm feeling dizzy. Whoa!
Okay, thanks again to Cinti for providing this pack. Be sure to shop the Cinti 10th birthday sale to get this pack and others for 50% off. As mentioned, the sale does end on August 2nd, so be quick, and be sure to look out for those 75% off epic deals. Thanks for watching, and catch you in the next one. Bye!